forskel på siden, når man begyndte med at snakke om, at der virkelig er ved at ske noget slemt, og man så ske nogle forskel for at bruge CO2.
Okay, two questions. One is how could it how come this comes as a surprise for us? Why didn't we know this before? That this is a problem, and when did we know it? And the other question is, well, has anything changed since we started talking about CO2 emissions being a problem to the climate as a whole, and started advocating this problem? Has anyone been able to see some kind of change?
Change in progress?
In the progress in the political sense.
Okay. To the first one, I'll give a little context and then hand it to these guys.
Yep.
The problem of CO2 going in the ocean causing harmful chemical change was not well understood. And the work that led to that was done by Dick Feely and other colleagues starting about 20 years ago. And they began to suspect they were onto a serious problem. In order to be able to prove it, they had to invent technology for measuring chemical change in the ocean that did not exist. They had to prove it to a degree that it would hold up in scientific debate. And that took a long time. They did all of this as volunteers. Nobody paid them for this. Nobody funded that work. They did this because they thought it mattered. These are the guys who make it possible for us to confront this problem. If they had not done this as volunteers, with that.
As Brad was saying, we began to understand this problem back in the 70s and 80s, but we didn't have the data to prove it. So we initiated a worldwide effort with 15 countries working together, and we gathered 72,000 samples on 99 cruises in the 1990s. And that allowed us to show the extent of this problem throughout the world. At the same time, our biological colleagues began to study the impacts of ocean acidification on the organisms. And this again was in the 1990s. And what they were finding was that they were seeing significant impacts even back then. And the impacts were very, very severe, as we saw in the movie. And the impacts we now see from laboratory studies, we are seeing in the field that bear out these changes. This is why we felt it was so important to bring it to the attention of the world community.
And Jeff, I'm going to ask you to take the second question because it's safe for you to do so. You're no longer wearing the scientist hat. And that means Jeff now works for a group that tackles this from an environmental point of view, and he doesn't have to wear the objective scientific hat. Has there been any progress at all? Has anything been done that works? Great man.
Well, from our perspective in Oceana, there's been beginnings of progress in that in our country, in the United States, there are a lot of people who are very skeptical about climate change, global warming, including politicians in the political process. But when they see the compelling scientific case that Dr. Feely and his colleagues have assembled now and amassed regarding ocean acidification, they're much more willing to engage on the issues of putting consequences of putting carbon dioxide in the atmosphere from that perspective. And consequently, we're now getting the attention of the congressional process. It's just at the beginning of that a long path that we'll have to follow, but it has started, and we're hopeful that we'll be able to use it in addition to advocating for the effects of avoiding the effects of global warming to move the American Congress toward global agreement.
Tony.
I think it depends if you're an optimist or a pessimist. If you're a pessimist, the whole of the Kyoto Protocol probably reduced emissions less than 0.5%. So that doesn't sound very effective. But I think the grounds for optimism are the fact we're all here. 192 nations have come to Copenhagen. I hear that 110 or more world leaders are coming to this meeting. That means that in 52 years, the world has become convinced that a colorless, odorless, tasteless gas, an inadvertent byproduct of the Industrial Revolution, is in fact poisoning the planet, and all of the nations of the world are here to do something about it. So it's easy to say we should have acted more quickly over those 52 years, but it was a long process to collect the data, even in the atmosphere, and then as Dick says, and now colleague Andrew Dixon, who played a huge role in this, is sitting in the back of the room, to assemble that scientific evidence. And then the scientific community had to create IPCC. You know, this intergovernmental panel didn't even exist, so that had to be invented out of thin air where the whole world could debate this issue and come to its conclusion. So I tend to look at this as a great achievement of the world, that we've come together, and I'm disappointed it took us 52 years